September 25th, 2021. My name is Lori Kurtz. My pronouns are she, hers. Would you please introduce yourself, tell us your pronouns if you care to, and tell us all of the things you do?
Yes, my name is Nina Nightshade. My pronouns are she, her, and I do a plethora of things, including burlesque performance, costuming, show production. I am also a hula dancer and a corgi mom and mom of a teenager.
Great. What is burlesque?
People come at it at a lot of angles, and there's different answers depending on which angle you come in. There are those that come in with the historical angle that burlesque was a lot about satire and finding ways to use humor to tell a story, to make a point. A lot of burlesque has also included in it striptease, and kind of when the burlesque circuits ended, burlesque became about the striptease because the comedians, the satires, those other pieces were able to be absorbed into other theater types, but there really wasn't a place where burlesque could go. And so I think that while a lot of people will talk about how the history of it, when we're talking about it now, we're talking about a form of striptease, whether it's one piece of clothing or all the way down. And you're generally telling some kind of a story. So whether it's just, I'm a pretty, pretty princess and I want to strip, or you're getting deep into the weeds with, this is the story about this person who went down this dark path and then they discovered the light, whatever it may be. But yeah, burlesque can mean a lot of things to a lot of people.
Yeah. And how do you describe the kind of burlesque that you do?
I like to describe my burlesque as mostly a classical performer with a geeky streak. I do a lot of nerdlesque. I do a lot of silly things. I would say I'm distractible, but at the core, I almost always fall back on my dance and the more classic style of performance.
And why do you do burlesque? What does it give you artistically that other forms don't?
Burlesque feeds my soul. I mean, it gives me the opportunity to be on stage, which feeds my soul in its own form. But I found that I want to do and be all the different things in theater and in dance. And burlesque is the one place where I get to do and be all of those things. I'm the choreographer, I'm the costumer. I decide when and where I'm going to do a show. I decide what happens during an act. It's my vision. I get to kind of be all of those pieces and put all of that into one small package that's 3 to 7 minutes long, depending on the act. That's, I think, the reason that I really found burlesque the most interesting. I also found a group of people that I connected to more than any other dance form that I've done. And I have great hula sisters. I have wonderful modern dance performers that I've worked with, but they've never created a bond quite the way that I have in the burlesque world.
Why do you think that is?
I think some of that is we all kind of have a shared interest, so there's something to fall back on. But I think especially with where I came from and with how few of us were performing at the time, we all kind of had to look out for each other. And, yeah, there's competition with each other, but more than anything, we're all trying to just get through this together and get booked and make burlesque known and seen more, and elevate it and make it better. What could we do to improve upon it? So I find that in burlesque, people I guess they put their monsters on display, so to speak. So they're not afraid to put things out there. They're not hiding I know that the person that I meet in burlesque most of the time, I mean, there are exceptions to every rule, but most of the time, those people are giving you who they are, or at least giving you a piece of them that's real.
And where on the spectrum of sex work does burlesque fall these days?
I mean, it's sex work light. I would say that it falls in the spectrum, but not very far. It's in the grand scheme of looking at sex work, it's pretty safe. Um, a lot of sex workers are putting themselves in very real situations where emotionally, even physically, they could be harmed. Um, and burlesque is kind of stepped back from that. I get a lot of, how can you be so vulnerable on stage? I'm like, are you kidding? I'm the one in control. I get to decide if you're not good enough, I'll walk off that stage without taking everything off, you know? So I would say when it comes to that, there is a piece of sex to it, but it's only a part of it.
And then where were you born and where did you grow up?
I was not a military child before the follow-up question comes up from this. I was born in Minnesota, very northern Minnesota, very close to the border of Canada. My parents divorced when I was 3, and my mother and I moved to Denver, Colorado. We moved to various places around Denver, and then we ended up in Phoenix. And then I took a side tour to San Antonio for a job, and then we ended up in Oregon. So I've bounced around quite a bit over my life. Oregon is definitely home at this point. It's where I've spent the most time and where I feel like I belong.
And what brought you here?
Well, originally, again, we moved to San Antonio for my job. The job was okay, but it wasn't quite what I had in mind. And my husband and I together decided we wanted to live in the right city, and then the jobs would figure itself out. So I actually only spent a short time working as an industrial designer, which is my degree, because it was more important that we find the right environment for us, and the jobs could figure itself out. So Portland was one of those cities, and that's the one where we found the jobs.
And then what did you do in your formative years, whatever those were, that led you to performance?
I, as the odd duck in my family, because nobody is a performer in my family, I didn't grow up with it. I just always liked being on stage. I was a very shy child. I'm still socially pretty awkward in social settings. But I found, I think I did a few like tap dance classes when I was little and stuff like that. But it was really in high school when I was able to be a part of the theater program that I found that was where I felt comfortable. And that was being able to perform, whether I was both in theater and I was also on the flag line. I see both of those as a performance style, and both of them allowed me to have common ground with people to get to know them, but also have a focus. And I've just kind of always been around theater from there.
Yeah, yeah. And so in what year and how did you get started in burlesque?
I started burlesque in 2008. At the time, my husband and I owned a retro clothing store called Cherry Red, and we were hosting Go-Go Amy and Bettina Mae were doing a pinup class. And I happened to know that they were burlesque performers as well. And so kind of asking them some questions about, what's it like to be a burlesque performer? Because I'd only actually seen one show before then. And I had already been a modern dancer and a belly dancer. And so they connected me with a local performer, Mayhem, who she and I kind of traded. I taught her some belly dance. She taught me some burlesque, and then she helped me get booked into my first show. So they kind of said, you're already 90% of the way there. You just need to learn these other skills, and then you can do this. And so Megan helped me get on the stage for the first time.
How did you pick your stage name, your burlesque name?
There's a little bit of history to that. I've always been kind of somebody who's kind of on the darker, more morbid side, a little bit more I like melancholy is my happy place is one of the things I like to say. Um, so the Nightshade came from there. So my real name is Nina, not just my performance name. And when I was a belly dancer, I had some Arabic brothers that were customers of mine when I worked at Starbucks, and they helped me translate my real name into Arabic. So they took my real name, figured out kind of what it would be, and it was Nina Al Tahwil, which was my belly dance name. So I did pinup first before I really got into burlesque. And so my pinup name, I decided I wanted to go with just keeping the same name and changing the last name. So that's kind of where those two pieces came together. And then the alliteration is always fun.
And I read you're called Oregon's First Lady of Burlesque. How did that come about?
That title was originally given to me by one of my friends who's an MC named Vincent Drambuie. A first lady is usually considered at the top of her craft, or if you're looking at first lady of the United States, historically it was the hostess of the White House. And so between my wanting to be kind of in that hostess status and always taking care of people, and when I produce shows, I'm very like, okay, what do you need? Is everybody good? Who needs what? And so playing off of kind of that hostess side, and then also being at the top of my craft, is where that tagline kind of came from.
Yeah. And so beyond those beginnings in 2008, how did you develop your career in burlesque?
Small and scrappy at first, I'm not gonna lie. So again, Megan got me into my first burlesque show that I did. There was maybe 8 people in the audience. I think I brought 4 of them. So, which is fine because I was terrible. I don't need people to remember that. But after that, Amy and Bettina came into town, and Cherry Red helped host a burlesque show in Salem where we were still living at the time. And after they left, all of our customers are like, well, when's the next burlesque show? Like, I don't know when they can get back around here. And they're like, well, you know some performers in Portland, right? So after only having been in 2 or 3 shows, I jumped into producing shows. So I had some event experience. It wasn't like I just jumped in cold. But I stepped into the role of producer pretty quickly just because there was a void and a bunch of people who wanted more of it. So a lot of me building myself up came from not just performing in a few places and being one of about 9 people that were regularly cycled through the rare show in Portland. But I created a lot of my name from stepping into a producing role pretty quickly. So performers are very interested in you if you're producing a show because they want to get booked.
Tell me about Rose Hip Review.
Okay. Rose Hip Review was one of the local shows that was happening. Rayling Courtney was one who's producing that. It was a monthly show that was happening, started in, I'm going to forget, the Barracuda Club downtown, which doesn't exist anymore. Side note, we actually discovered it used to be the Dancing Hall Girls, like was who used to be in that building years ago when it was like Saloon Girl era. And we were one of the last dancing girls to be in that building before they completely closed it down. Anyway, that moved to the Star Theater. And I was just kind of on the regular roster of people who I didn't work every month, but you know, every 2 or 3 months I was cycled back into the roster on that.
Yeah. And then Rose City Shimmy, what was that?
Rose City Shimmy was a group of 4 performers that I got to know pretty quickly and connected with pretty quickly. It was Itty Bitty Bang Bang, Charlotte Truce, Baby Lestrange, and High Fleisch, and Megan Mayhem. So I already knew Megan. Megan's the one who introduced me to the other ladies. Um, they were a troupe that just kind of, they didn't necessarily have group acts, but they worked together. They did a lot of, so like when I produced shows in Salem, I brought Rose City Shimmy down. And I was always kind of an honorary member, so to speak, but I was never actually a member of that. I did a lot of shows with them. I would travel with them to Astoria, do shows with them in Portland. But yeah, they were just kind of a collective of girls that looked out for each other and did shows together.
Cool. So Astoria, what's it like to do burlesque in a small town on the Oregon coast?
It was a lot of fun. We did that in the theater. I don't remember the name of the theater. It was not the big one, it was a smaller one. That I think is technically a movie theater. So I find that, well, one, they treated me like I was a celebrity in the whole town once they, you know, like I came in, stayed at a hotel, and they were like, "Ooh, you look fancy. What are you?" And I told them I was in the burlesque show, and like all of a sudden I was treated like a rock star. Um, and yeah, I mean, it really depends. I mean, it depends on the town and how they embrace you. But the ones that embrace you, it's almost better than the big city shows where you go to like San Francisco and there's all kinds of people there. Um, because the audiences are so excited and so engaged. Sometimes in the big city, they're kind of too good for it.
Hmm.
But in some of the smaller towns, like the cheering is louder and the energy is bigger. And maybe it's because I don't see shows as often. I don't know. But yeah, I had a great time in Astoria.
Right. And then I saw you had a connection to Miss Kennedy's Cabaret. What was that?
Miss Alex Kennedy did a monthly show at Dante's for a while. Again, I was a cycled in performer for different things. She became a very dear friend of mine. And originally I just contacted her and she was like, "Great, sounds like you'd be good for this." They were always themed every month. So it sounds like you'd be really great for this theme. Do you want to do this show? Um, and then kind of got to the point where she would reach out to me and say, "Hey, here's the theme. Can you make something for it?" So I created many acts for Miss Kennedy, sometimes just adapting a costume I already had, but a few times creating something completely scratch from new for her. Um, and it was always just a lot of fun to work with her. She had a very kind of like set theme and script in between, things like that. She's also the one who used to run the yearly Rocky Horror Pasty show, which I did with her every year. So
And your costumes. How'd you acquire your costume skills? What kinds of things did you make?
costuming is probably 50% of the reason I'm in burlesque is I love the costumes. I love making them. I need reasons to make big, ridiculous gowns. This isn't even a big, ridiculous gown, but so the costume skills, I always grew up with a mom who sewed everything. So I learned very quickly how to use a sewing machine, how to do some basic things. My skills kind of went above and beyond when during my last year in my bachelor's degree, I worked as a stitcher for the lyric opera at Arizona State. Just student worker position, went in between classes when I could, and I learned so much sitting in that shop. I got to work on 2 different shows while I was there. And what I loved about those ladies was they would always be like, oh, you haven't done that before? Well, come over here. We're doing it. Instead of just throwing things at me, they're like, oh, this will be easy for you. Just sew all these straight hems. They're like, oh, you've never made a bustle? Come over here. We're going to show you this. I learned how to set a sleeve with them. I learned how to use a serger with them. So a lot of my skills came from that year that I got to spend working in the lyric opera, just, side job. And then I also, before getting into burlesque, I was a part of SCA, Society for Creative Anachronism. You have to make a lot of your own stuff in there too. So we also learned how to make a lot of big Renaissance gowns and ridiculous pirate costumes and the like. So, but yeah, I love making costumes.
So tell me about Behoff Movers, Shakers, and Innovators Showcase in 2011.
That's definitely, there are like a few shining moments in my burlesque career, so to speak, that I'm really proud of. And one of them was having the opportunity to be in that showcase. The Burlesque Hall of Fame Weekender is a fundraiser for the Burlesque Hall of Fame Museum. And it's kind of the, the big competition and the big show. And then also when you have the opportunity to see a lot of living legends perform, which is my special place in the burlesque world. I love them so much. I applied my, I was like, sure, I'm going to apply to this. My Charlotte Truce is performer and she's now in New Orleans. She and I call each other cousins. We actually aren't related, but she is my burlesque cousin. She convinced me to, she's like, just start applying. If you don't get in this year, at least they'll remember you from next year, like just keep at it. And so I applied and was ready for my rejection letter. And it was not a rejection letter that I got. And I was shocked because Charlotte Truce, Angelique DeVille, and I all got into Behoff that year, which having that many people who have never, who are fairly new to the scene. Charlotte and Angelique have been in the scene a little bit longer than me, but all three of us got in. They got into the like new performer competition. And then I got into this Movers, Shakers, and Innovators, which is kind of the first night. So just having the opportunity to be there was amazing. I got to meet a lot of people. I just kind of stepped in, and rather than walking in and getting my feet wet, like I literally just went straight into the deep end and dove off. So, but yeah, being able to be chosen to be on that stage. There are many, many people who deserve to be on that stage who have never been on it. But I feel like of those people that are deserving of being on that stage, I am at least one of them. And I was just privileged to be the one that was chosen. So.
Right. And then after that, in the 2020 teens, I saw credits at Rue Royale Burlesque, and you produced that?
Correct. I co-produced that with Sugarcane and Sophie Maltese.
Yeah.
That was, we were looking at, there's a piece missing to our community and our shows. There's lots of little shows going on. Rose Hip Review had stopped happening, so that was kind of our bigger show in town at the time. And then getting people in from outside of Oregon was something that we were pushing for. So the three of us, originally we started with, our first show was actually having Charlotte Truce come back as our headliner, because now she was from out of town and she happened to be in town. And we were like, yes, let's produce a show. We can make this fabulous. So it originally started as just a one-off show that Sugarcane and I put on, and then realized, okay, there's a niche here for bringing in a big out of town headliner and doing it at the larger theater where Rose Hip Review used to happen at the Star Theater. And so the three of us just kept trucking, and it became a quarterly show, and we did it for as long as we could. Got sponsors for a little while and lost sponsors as things happen, and, you know, kept it alive for as long as we could. We keep hoping that maybe someday, we'll see.
So you mentioned the ups and downs of producing and sponsors and financing. How do you go from let's put on a show to finding financial? How does all that work?
Well, most of the shows that I have done I've had some sponsorship that's helped with, like, that's been more of an in-kind sponsorship. So we will put out your advertise. So like with Rue Royale, Sugarcane set up a relationship with Haley Pele, where anytime you got your check, you also got a Rue Royale advertisement that was like, hey, there's this burlesque show happening. And so for most of the shows that I produced on my own, I'm taking the financial risk. I'm looking at, okay, here's how much it's going to cost to do all these things. Here's how many tickets I need to sell to be able to pay people. And I'm kind of figuring out that budget and basically coming up with, what am I willing to risk? How much money am I willing to take a risk on? With Rue Royale, we were fortunate in having some cash sponsors as well. And those really come from creating relationships with people. We had a relationship with the Betty Page store when they were in town. They were one of our cash sponsors. And then we would do, like during intermission, we would do a fashion show of the new Betty Page dresses. And so they were getting that it was, again, anytime you're looking at that kind of sponsorship, you want it to be even on both sides. Like, I'm not just taking money from you. I also want to give you something back. That's why you would give me the money. And so when Betty Page store closed, we obviously lost that sponsorship. So some of those things kind of come and go. I find that alcohol sponsors are very come and go. When I was working with Orchestra La Pau, we had an alcohol sponsor for a little while, and then that just kind of disappeared with no explanation of why. They thought we were great for a while, and then I guess they decided we weren't. I don't know. But yeah, that again, that's just kind of the nature of the beast. But I think in the end, anytime you're producing, you have to be ready for how much financial risk can I take on.
Great. And then there was another production company or show that you produced that brought in the living legends. Can you tell me about that?
So anytime I'm producing on my own, it's under Bergamot Burlesque, which is, we kind of go with the poison themes. For people who don't know that bergamot is actually truly a poison. And it was my first year that I went to Beehoff. So I got to perform in it and the first day, and then I got to enjoy the rest of it like a crazy person. And the day that I was watching the Living Legends, I was just like, why aren't these people out there? And the MC for that show was world famous Bob from New York. And she got up there and she's like, you know what? You think these legends are great? You want to do something to support these legends? And everybody's like, yay. She goes, book them. And I was like, okay, called to task. And I had the fortune of meeting Dee Milo before at a BurlyCon, which is the burlesque convention in Seattle. I signed up to the best way to meet people is to volunteer, by the way. I volunteered to drive people to and from the airport. And so I drove Dee Milo to and from the airport. And she's still like my burlesque mama. She has given me permission to do an act in tribute to her red dress, things like that. She's a wonderful, wonderful woman. But I heard that call and I was like, okay, so Dee, do you want to come to Portland? And she came and stayed with me for a week, and I took her around and listened to her stories. And then after that happened and everybody was like, this was amazing. She was amazing. How did you do this? I decided to make it an annual thing again for as long as I could. And so I was able to bring in Tony Elling, who used to actually perform here in Portland. She worked at Mary's Club when Mary's Club was a burlesque house. And then she worked at the Desert Room, which is now, it's in the basement of, it's Al's Den, downtown close to the Crystal Ballroom. But because she was a colored woman, those were the two places that she could work. But I got to hear great stories from her with driving around. She's like, "What? Can you drive me over here? This is my house." And, you know, getting to hear stories about Duke Ellington, like, it's so great. And I've had Tiffany Carter, who's another one of my mentors, through, Gabriella Mays, who's so much fun. And then I was supposed to have Judith Stein. Unfortunately, she fell and injured herself a week before the show and couldn't come up. So we did a tribute to her act as our finale. Yeah. So when coming up with problem solving, and when your headliner is not going to show up 3 days before the show, you call up all the performers and you're like, okay, so here's what we're going to do. Just wait for your cue. I'm going to give you this. And then we sent it to her. So. But yeah, booking legends is my favorite thing.
Yeah. And so for something completely different.
Yes.
2016 Miss Yardbird. Tell me about using burlesque for community fundraising.
So through burlesque, I got into this kind of sideshow roadside attraction world with Jake the Alligator Man on Long Beach, and their friends, Yardbird. So Yardbird's mall is a mall in Chehalis, Washington. And they have a large piece of roadside Americana outside that is a giant black bird with a yellow beak. And they were doing fundraising to save Yardbird because it was falling apart. I'm sure it was never meant to last as long as they have made it last. And so they started the Miss Yardbird's pinup contest. For a couple of years, I would support it just by sharing, like, I can't be a part of this. I'm, for whatever reason, but you guys should go to this. You should sign up. And then one year I decided I wanted to finally go for it. So going there, and again, everything with the roadside Americana is very tongue-in-cheek. It's, you're honoring American history, but you're also kind of like joking and you understand how kitschy it is. And so, they had us do speeches where it was silly things like, okay, so on Gilligan's Isle, are you ginger or and so it was a lot of fun. And then they had all of us do an act, but it had to be a PG-13 act. So I did an act that basically I did a burlesque act, but didn't strip down to, just strip down to the next layer which is a lot of times what I do, because then it just becomes, it's not so much a strip tease as it is a like costume change, costume reveal, because I do a lot of things where I'm like, look, there's another dress underneath, just kidding. So, and I ended up winning that year and I was super excited. And then from there, it was actually a whole year of parades, and I did a lot of local parades, the Egg Day parades, Christmas light parades, but also when they had said, if you were Miss Yardbird, what would that mean to you? How would you carry it forward? And I said, well, one of my promises is if I'm Miss Yardbird, I will wear my crown to every curtain call for the entire year. And So I wore this silly little crown. It's cracked and a little bit sad right now, but I wore that crown to every curtain call with my sash that said Miss Yardbird. And then because then that got out the word, a lot of like, what is this? And so I would, even with my producers, I'm like, look, I made this promise, so I'm going to be wearing this in curtain call. I hope that's okay. Nobody fought me on it. And then we did a lot of like, they had a festival and my daughter and I went and played with the kids and we taught them a go-go lesson. And so it was definitely a silly little thing. One of my friends now refers to me as the Queen of Kitsch. She's like, you with the Jake the Alligator Man and the Yardbirds and the so
That's great. Oh, that's funny. I was going to ask you I want to ask about technology. Since you started in 2008, the world has exploded.
yes.
You applied to BHOF in 2011, and I was wondering about the tech logistics of that. Today we would do a video and attach it to an email or Dropbox it or something. I've read a lot about early neo-burlesque people talking about the early internet, meaning 2000s, and that connectivity was a driving force in this burgeoning neo-burlesque movement. What was your experience with all that?
Was always a little bit behind on the tech thing, so I already, everybody had their MySpace, and then they moved over to Facebook, and I was like, oh God, I don't want to do any of these things. Because when I first started, really everything that I did wasn't tech, but I got my first bookings by talking to people physically, and you showed up at a gig and you handed them your CD, and like the big tech was like, I burned a CD with just one song so you don't have to find it, instead of handing them your CD from Portishead and you're like, track number 4 please. And so when it comes to the tech of the show logistics, that's changed a lot. Again, we're not coming in with here's my CD and then you play it on this and then hopefully it works. There's a lot more cutting of songs now. So instead of being like, play track 3 and then skip to 7, I'm actually cutting music together just the way I like. And then as a producer, being able to just have everybody's music and listen to it ahead of time and like obsessively listen to it to make sure that there's no glitches in it, that there's no nothing going on, and then being able to just hand somebody and go, just hit next. When it came to just reaching an audience, I definitely, again, started with the MySpace and then moved on to the Facebook. I avoided Facebook for a really long time because my grandparents were on Facebook. And I was like, Grandpa can't find me on Facebook. This is gonna be bad. And then I learned you can block people. I was like, sweet, I can do this. But I was on, again, I was doing a lot of pinup modeling at the beginning. So I was on like Model Mayhem and those kind of websites. And then there was a pinup social media thing for a while. I don't even remember the name of it. I was super into that for about 8 months. And then I was like, oh, I'm done. But yeah, it's made things a lot more accessible. So, I can call up a living legend and say, hey, do you want to do a show? I can contact Dirty Martini and be like, do you want to do a show? What are your rates? And maybe your rates are too high, but that's okay. At least you still have that opportunity. And again, people are more accessible, which has its good and bad. But as a performer, it means that also people ask me to do things that I'd be like, oh my God, yes, I'd absolutely want to do that. And they're like, really? oh, we went out on a long shot on this, But I find that a lot of performers, if you ask them, they're interested. I mean, for the right price, most of them are interested. Um, so the tech is definitely, as both a performer and a producer, made the ability to do my job a lot easier.
Yeah. You've talked a little bit about the burlesque community in Portland when you started, and some were monthly shows and some things were quarterly and other things were once a year. It sounds very fluid. How would you describe just the sort of community and the scene?
Again, it's changed a lot since I started, what, 12, 13 years ago. But it's, again, when I started, there were maybe 9 of us that were performing regularly. There were other performers. I'm not going to say there were only 9 of us. But within my circle, there were only 9 of us that were cycling through a lot of these things that we were getting booked for. And as new people came in, it was exciting. And then all of a sudden it was like, wait, I don't know everybody anymore. How did this happen? And then once we started getting the schools that really built a lot of new performers, I started to feel kind of out of touch from the community. And, I've met a lot of people along the way, but I don't know all the performers. There's well over 100 now that I would say perform at least, a couple times a year. And it's had its ups and downs and its moments. We always seem to have some queen bee running around who's trying to control the scene. We always have that other person on the other side who's like, I'm just going to be different from the rest of you. But, I would say within the Portland community, there's groups, certain groups that kind of work together. And then a lot of us that just float between those groups.
Yeah. Your dog.
Sorry.
No, you said you were
his best.
Yes, no, you said at the beginning you were a corgi mom. So I thought,
Yes.
where are they? But we will persevere. We won't get too distracted. So you've talked a little bit about the business skills and business savvy. And can you just talk a little more about, a week in the life of a burlesque artist, producer, and what was your week like? Just all of the skill sets.
Okay. It really depended on just like doing a theater show. It depends on where you're at in the cycle. So we all have our hell weeks. We all have our, dead times that we're like, now what? Everything's over and I'm not doing anything. Instead of, you've just been praying for that time off and you get it and you're like, oh, now what? But I would say, a typical week, again, I work full time outside of performance. So I've always had to balance the parenting and the full-time job along with the burlesque side of things. And so for me, there's a lot of business emails during lunch that are burlesque business emails during lunch. And again, you kind of have to just figure out what am I focusing on this week? So if I'm going to be in somebody else's show, I'm focusing more on my choreography, on making sure that I've put that snap back on that costume that I broke last time I was wearing it. That I'm working through maybe the bugs on what didn't work last time and just getting some general practice in. As a producer, I'm usually spending more time on how do I get the word out? So my first thing I want to do is I book all my people. So I take the time to figure out who's going to be on my cast. And then you have the logistics of getting their pictures and all the things that you need from them, and checking in with them pretty regularly to make sure that they know what's expected of them. And then my next task is to get butts and seats. So a lot of times I would be spending, again, after work on my lunch breaks. A lot of times I would do like Sunday mornings, I would just be my work day for shows, where I would go in and I would plan all of my posts for the week and schedule them on like Facebook and stuff like that. Um, Facebook used to be a really great place to get the word out. I think that's changed, as Facebook has changed, but also as people using the social media has changed. But whatever that social media may be, spending the time to get that stuff ready so that I can tell an audience, hey, did you know? Go buy your tickets. Go, don't wait. Go buy your tickets. You're stressing me out. So yeah, I would say every week's different. There was no like, I always do this every Thursday, other than the usual conditioning things. Like I take a dance class once a week. That feeds my craft, but that's not necessarily working towards a specific project.
You mentioned a day job. You don't have to tell me where you worked, but what industry do you work in?
I work in higher education. I am currently the director of operations for a private university in Oregon.
Yeah. And then we've had this pandemic. So the COVID pandemic.
I've noticed that.
Yeah, you have. How did that affect the burlesque scene in Portland?
I think, like many other communities, especially performance communities, there was that first period of we're just shutting everything, like canceling shows. I can't do this. I can't, we're going to cancel this because we don't think it's going to be over yet. Or we're, if you're good sitting tight, we're going to check in next week and see if we can do this show. I had a pretty full summer booked already, and my daughter is in dance team, and they had a state competition coming up. So for me, those first few weeks, I was like, oh, well, we're not doing dance competitions, but I'm not losing out on all of these performance opportunities, when we thought this was going to be over in 2 months. So I was like, well, I lost out on one show. I'm fine. And then they kind of collided and started canceling more and more. And then we started to realize, oh, maybe this is going to take longer. And I was just kind of like, okay, take a break. I was actually finishing my master's degree at the time. And so for me, I was like, okay, while we have downtime, I'll just take 2 classes at once and really get this thing done. So I spent most of the beginning of the pandemic just focusing on getting my degree done and, checking in with my performer friends and seeing how they're doing. I had asked to be in a couple of virtual shows pretty early on that I had turned down for 2 reasons. One, I was working on my master's degree and I was trying to get that done. And I didn't want to have to figure out how to make a camera situation happen because that's not something I had to do before. But also there were so many performers that were dependent on that money. And all of a sudden they had nothing. And I was still, at the time, I'm considered an essential worker. So I'm still driving to work every day, which was its own stress during the pandemic. But I didn't want to take away from that small pool of money that was left for performers. It was like, right now, I don't need to be a part of this. I need other people who were more dependent on it to be able to take from that pool of money. So I kind of just sat back for a while and didn't do anything. And then I toyed around with, okay, maybe I should do something. But we're watching, I started watching all these other people do all these online shows and things happening. And it was exciting to see the adaptation, okay, live shows aren't going to happen for a while and people still need performance art. I mean, both the artists and the audience still need some kind of connection to that performance art because there's a reason they were going before. And so watching people just fill in that gap was fascinating. I did 2 online shows total. And while it was a fun, like, social experiment and it was a fun challenge for me to step out of my comfort zone and do something new, I didn't love it as much. I definitely feed off of the audience energy. Um, Whereas I watched some people just all of a sudden become amazing videographers. And I was like, you're making a music video over there, like doing a great job. And finding ways to use the medium to their advantage. Like, how often do you get to actually go out to the woods and begin your act in the woods and then step inside? I mean, that you can't, that's a feat of stage makeup and set design that we don't have the privilege of being able to use. So it was neat to see people adapt to that and figure it out.
People in burlesque say it empowers them. What's your take on that?
Um, I'd say yes for a lot of people. It definitely gave me a lot more confidence. And I don't think it's just the burlesque itself. Like, it wasn't, it wasn't the striptease. Like, yes, there's a piece of, I accept my body for what it is. I'm going to put it on stage. But frankly, sometimes I put it on stage and I am not real proud of it at the moment. And I'm still going to put it on stage because that's what I'm here for. But I found that, one, again, I've been asked a couple times, don't you feel so vulnerable up there? And I'm like, no, I have full control. I get to decide when things happen and why they happen. And frankly, I get to decide if you're worth it. So I'm in complete control when I'm on stage. So there's a piece of that is empowering. And again, I think a lot of people who are interested, this is just my general opinion, but I think a lot of people who are in theater are actually very shy people who aren't very good at getting out there. There's both. There's very gregarious people who are on stage, don't get me wrong. But I think there's a fair amount of us who aren't very good in social settings, but will go on stage and do something crazy and have no problem with it. And I think in that aspect that it's empowering because I have control over everything that I do. As I spoke to earlier, I get to decide my costume. I get to decide what's right for my music. I get to decide what my body can and can't do today. And I think that piece for me is what's empowering about it. And also I get to be proud of being a woman and the body that I'm in, even if some days I don't like it very much. Most days I like it, just to put it aside. But some days I'm like, what are you doing?
So do you think that empowerment or growth or confidence, do you think that's a piece of why people say burlesque can be a force for social change?
I think it's one of them. There is that piece of empowerment. You're on stage, you need to entertain an audience. So there's kind of a social contract with why you're on stage. You're not up there just to feel empowered and bring your therapy on stage. You're also there to entertain an audience. But I think part of it is that it gives people who in a lot of other performance circles wouldn't have an opportunity to be represented on stage. And I think that's where some of that social change or social justice comes into this community. Is how often would my mom body be allowed on stage and be considered sexy when there's another girl who follows this certain stereotype? Burlesque still has its stereotypes, don't get me wrong. And again, every producer is different, every show is different. I'm not saying that we're perfect. But I think that it also, again, you have control over the message that you're bringing. So I have an opportunity to go on stage and make a very strong message. So if I want to go out there and I want to be a pretty, pretty princess, great. But if I want to go out there and I want to make you feel something, I have that opportunity. And again, working with your producers, but Some producers are looking for something and some producers are looking for other things. But also there are producers out there that's what they're going for. They're like, show me the things on stage that are making a difference.
Do you have an act that embodies that? Can you describe an act?
I would say, again, a lot of my acts are very based on costume because that's what I love about it. But I do have, like, I have some acts that come across as silly that are actually making a pretty strong message. One of them is along with all the other things that I do, I am an honorary member of Titan Nerdy, which is a burlesque troupe that only performs to Weird Al songs. We have a lot of fun. I also, anytime they're in Portland, I co-produce the shows with them. Some of the best ladies. I mean, I love Weird Al, but really I love these ladies. I have an act to a song that Weird Al sings called King of Suede. That's basically a song about thrift store shopping and how he's the king of suede in the thrift store, and everything in my costume is suede and none of it fits right. And so I have purposely made it where, like, I'm that feeling when you're standing in the dressing room and you just want this thing to fit and it just doesn't. And you're like, then you like get stuck in it and you're panicking. And so I went in with this, like, wouldn't it be funny if just like nothing fit, and you kind of get that, that panicky feeling, and ended up being more of a like commentary on body image and how I want to look a certain way, but this dress isn't letting me look the way that I want to feel. And then this thing's too big and I don't have big enough boobs and I don't have the right. And so in my brain, I wasn't originally going for a social commentary on body image, but that's kind of where the act went. Was more like the frustration of there's this gorgeous dress at a thrift shop and it's 2 sizes too small, but I'm going to try it on anyway.
That's great. And so other than the sort of obvious COVID, what do you think are the challenges facing burlesque today?
It's hard not to think of COVID because we've been in this for so long, but I think one of the challenges facing burlesque, which has kind of always been there, is the stigma of burlesque. Anytime I say that I do burlesque for the first time with a group of people, so the first time I told my hula sisters, I kind of waited for that backlash. And then you're always kind of pleasantly surprised when somebody's like, "Ooh, that's so exciting." But there's always somebody in the group that's not comfortable, even if they're trying to pretend they are. And I think that that's one of the challenges. But also one of the things that makes it great is I've had all these opportunities to have these conversations with people about what about burlesque is upsetting to you? Because let's talk about body image. Let's talk about the stigma that's the way women are treated and the way women are seen and the sexualization of women, because yes, what we do has a sexual nature, but it's not all about sex. And so I think that's one of the things that challenges it. Also, kind of in that line is the number of people who don't see it as an art. I absolutely think of myself as an artist. I think of myself as a performing artist, as a textile artist. But the number of people who are like, but it's not real art. Like, oh, so you're an art critic. How much art background do you have? So I think that's a challenge. The other challenge I think a lot of us face is just finding venues. There are amazing shows that could happen if there was a place to have them. And some of that is a lot of the great venues have become movie theaters. That's the theater that we worked in Astoria, they kind of figured it out for us, but they had converted an old burlesque house into a movie theater. And then fighting with, big name things. So even in our town here, I have the perfect venue with this old burlesque house, but they're more interested in, even if it's a low name band, but a high name booker, they're more interested in that. I walked into a thrift shop the other day that wasn't even that great of a thrift shop, and it has a stage with the curtain, and I was like, why is this a thrift shop? I want to put on shows in here. You're killing me, you guys. So I think that becomes one of the biggest challenges, is selling it to somebody to get them to book you, and to book you more than 6 weeks in advance. So
Yeah. And so, final question, what do you wish the general public would understand about burlesque?
I think kind of stepping back to what I had said about, in burlesque, there is an element of sexuality to it. There's striptease, you're showing the body. Some acts are very lewd because they can be. One of the other reasons they call me First Lady is because I'm a little bit more of a prude in the way, I'm a little bit more uppity in my performance style. And so that was kind of that highfalutin name. But given there's always a little bit of sex in it, but for me, it's not about sex. And I think that a lot of people get so hung up on the sexuality side of burlesque that they miss all these amazing things that are also happening with a burlesque performance. And I liken it to, when you watch a movie, there's a sex scene in it, but was the movie about sex? No. Now, there are movies where you're like, that sex scene was not necessary. But there's a lot where it's a part of the plot line, but it's a part of the plot line. It's not everything about that movie. And I think a lot of burlesque acts are the same. There's a sexuality to it. But sometimes I'm not a sex object out there to be enjoyed. I'm just a naked person. So I think that stigma, I think, is, I want people to know that stigma doesn't need to be there.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.